The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
This is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to this very special installment of the Practice Perfection Web-Based Education Series. Today's presentation is entitled, Find Your Practice's Silver Lining. Everything in your world is in the cloud. Your practice needs to be there too. The dental profession is in the midst of a technology revolution, just as in the 1990s when dentists and the rest of the civilized world moved from DOS to Windows. The time to move boldly forward is now. Because they were raised on the internet, younger doctors understand the advantages of working in the cloud as compared with 1990s client-server technology. If you've been asking yourself, why is my entire world on the cloud except my practice management software? This webcast is for you. Andy Jensen is a 25-year veteran of the dental software profession. He is Chief Marketing Officer for Curve Dental, Inc., which develops web-based dental software available in the United States and Canada. Andy joined the company in 2009. Since then, Curve has seen its user base grow tenfold. Andy is presented at the Yankee Dental Congress and similar venues nationwide. His articles outlining the benefits and advantages of managing the dental practice from the cloud are regularly published in Dental Economics. He's also been published in and interviewed for numerous other trade publications and websites, including Dental Products Report, Dentistry Today, Inside Dentistry, Dental Compare, Dental Town, and many more. Now, before we get started, I want to remind everyone, as usual, that Practice Perfection webcasts run for approximately 90 minutes. While attendees are in listen-only mode, we invite you at any time to submit your questions or comments using the question button on your screen. We will, again as always, allow time following the presentation to get your questions answered. Attendance at this presentation entitles you to receive 1.5 hours of PACE-approved continuing education credit. Shortly following the webcast, you will be emailed a brief survey with instructions on how to receive your CE. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practices if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform it competently. And with that, it is now my distinct pleasure to welcome to the Practice Perfection stage, Mr. Andy Jensen.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I want to take just a moment to also thank you for introducing Curve Dental to Climb for a Cause. That's been a wonderful, rewarding experience for us so far. We recently received a picture from all the way from Tibet, some kids in front of a clinic, and we're very grateful that we had the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Well, that's very kind. Thanks for starting off with a plug for our foundation. I appreciate that, Andy.
You're welcome. Some things about me. You talked about 25 years in the dental software business. That's 25 very long, very good years. And I have to say, this picture is you know, I obviously had a very good hair day. The more spikes, the better, I've been told. So that looks good. As you said, I started my career in '92. I joined a small startup. This little company was in a suite above an Indian restaurant. And every day when you went to work, you could smell the curry coming through the shag carpet. It was a great place. But the name of that company was Dentrix Dental Systems. And when I started there was 225 customers. And it was a great experience. Later, the Dentrix Dental Systems acquired by Henry Schein in '97, and then together with a very talented team, we grew Dentrix into one of the best-known brands in dentistry, probably worldwide for dental software. In 2009, I had an opportunity to leave Henry Schein, and I did. And later that same year, I joined Curve Dental, which was another startup opportunity for me. And I think that's what was attractive to me was to get back to those good old days as a startup when you can really affect change. Curve Dental is not a startup now. I mean, it's 12 years of cloud-only development experience. We've got, I think, close to 13 million patient records. 16,000 dental professionals use Curve Dental every day, and like 3,200 doctors are using Curve Dental. So definitely not a startup, but that's my background. So I know a little bit about the dental software business. But before we begin, before we even talk about why the cloud is a better technology platform in practice, let's define that term. What is the cloud? A lot of people use this term cloud. So let's talk about it. The cloud, this is the best analogy that I found so far, Danny, is if you view the cloud as a utility. Power, for example, electricity, I mean, someone has to go out and build that dam, build that wind farm, build that, hopefully not coal anymore, but propane or whatever, and build that generator, and then they have to build all the power lines, and they need to get all of that infrastructure built so they can deliver power to every home. So you and I, we get our utility bill, and we're paying pennies for what we're getting. But if we were to try and build our own power station and provide our home with our own power, we would spend a lot more than we're spending now for certain. So if you compare the cloud to a utility like that, what you're doing is, if you were to build into your practice the same level of data security, storage, reliability that you find in one data storage facility, you'd spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in building that, and then tens of thousands more in maintenance fees every month to keep that data working for you. Therefore, the cloud is a catch-all phrase, meaning you're not using a local server for your computing and storage needs. So being on the cloud means it doesn't matter what happens to my computer, house, or the neighborhood. My data is instead housed in a data storage facility and backed up on multiple servers in multiple geographic locations. So it doesn't matter what happens locally, my data is always someplace else. The advantages here is we have affordable computing power that is more reliable, more secure, always backed up and flexible. And there's one more thing here. If the internet goes down, trucks are rolling. Just like in my previous example, if any time your electricity goes down, trucks are rolling to fix that. And the same thing happens to the cloud. If that internet connection goes down, chances are very, very good that trucks are rolling to fix that. And instead of paying all this money for that computing power, we're paying pennies instead for better reliability, better security, backup and flexibility, and accessibility too is very important. So let's get back to our subject matter. How to build the killer practice on the cloud. How to build the killer practice on the cloud. So what exactly do I mean by using the term killer practice? Let's define that. So the attributes of the killer practice. You know, I've always wanted to say this, Danny. I've always wanted to say, well, in my book, I say this and this and this. Well, I'm not quite there, but I don't have, I do have a workbook of the subject matter, and I'm happy to share that, of how you can download that workbook in a minute. But anyway, in my workbook, I present 4 attributes of the killer practice, which is this: that your production is healthy and growing, that you're the envy of the community. So when other doctors hear your name, they go, oh, yes, yes, Dr. So-and-so, yes, he's a very progressive practice. Third attribute, preferred lifestyle and work style, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And fourth attribute, a rewarding career coupled with a rewarding retirement. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the killer practice. So there are 7 killer practice advantages, and they are, first is accessibility, successability, affordability, business continuity, scalability, sellability, and dependability. So we'll talk about each one of those. Let's start with accessibility. This comic strip I thought was awesome. You know, once upon a time, maybe us older people can remember this. Once upon a time, travel by air was a completely different experience. I mean, you could go from curb to gate with unfettered movement. No one was going to stop you and all that type of thing. But you know, sadly, after 9/11, I was traveling that same year, and I was with a colleague, And we got in line to go through security. And I remember he said to me, prepare to get undressed. And so when I saw this comic strip, that reminded me of that. But unfettered is the one I want to look at. It's a great word, and it means free from restraint. So unfettered access to your patient data means there's no aftermarket bolt-on third-party software to help you get access to your data. The user experience is unchanged regardless of time or location. So if you're accessing your patient data at work and then you go home and you're in the hot tub and you're looking at your patient data, that experience is exactly the same. Although I think in the hot tub, you're going to be a little bit more relaxed. Patient data is not stuck to a server in your broom closet. It's not in your practice, and it's more accessible because it's not there. So that's what we mean by unfettered accessibility. So wait a minute, I know that a lot of doctors are thinking, well, wait a minute, I do have access to my patient data. You probably installed some third-party software that lets you get access to your data. This reminds me of that aftermarket automobile parts you can buy. And I found this picture. Obviously, somebody saw this spoiler in a catalog and thought it looked great on the back of their Mazda Miata, but it doesn't. It really doesn't look good. So third-party remote access software is like bad aftermarket car parts. It's an added expense. It provides an unsatisfactory user experience. And more importantly, it increases your technology footprint. A technology footprint is similar to a carbon footprint. In this case, how much technology does it require for you to manage your practice? And when you add third-party remote access software, you're just increasing that footprint. And our whole point here is we want to simplify, not complicate our technology footprint. So that's what we mean by that. Now, the American Society for Quality, there is actually an American society called the American Society for Quality, and it was founded in 1946, is a knowledge-based global community of quality control guys. And who would know more about the value of work style than the American Society for Quality? And the society defines work style as the basis of how we organize our work, manage our time, teach and learn, interact with others, contribute to the team, and communicate. So our personal preferences are the basis of how we organize our work and manage our time. Learning how to organize our work and manage our time so they are in sync requires multiple flashes of genius. So the workplace becomes a much more efficient place when the workplace molds itself around the individual rather than the individual trying to adapt to the workplace, if that makes sense. So here's an example. When we venture to our favorite clothier, the place to buy clothes, we tend to purchase clothes that fit our particular physique. Unfortunately for me, it's XL instead of L, but I'm trying to get back to L. Rarely does
for a cause, there's a good chance you will be, my friend.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Happy to help.
You know that rarely does the one size fits all, rarely does that really work. We purchase our particular size because we are much more efficient, more capable, and much happier when our pants do not ride up our crotch, for example. So that all comes down to this. Genius comes when you're in the zone. For me, sometimes that's I'm in the shower thinking about the things that need to be done for work, and things just start to click. For other people, it's different places. Your zone may not always exist between the hours of 9 and 5 and from Monday to Thursday and between the walls of your practice. You may enter your zone at the local coffee shop reviewing the day's schedule. Or perhaps your zone is in your pajamas reviewing a particularly difficult case. Or maybe at the pool enjoying a cold beverage. So the zone is different for everyone. Everyone has their own work styles, just as diverse as our own physical characteristics. The cloud, like a real cloud, molds itself quite comfortably around whatever your work style is and what you prefer. So regardless of where your zone exists, access to your patient data is paramount, because when you're in the zone, you want to be able to access that data to help you put those flashes of genius together. So access at some spot outside the walls of your practice stimulates creative thinking, and that spawns one genius idea that probably changes everything for your practice, or more importantly, may change everything for one patient. And with the cloud, and only with the cloud, accessibility is a natural advantage. Now, And the second reason why this is important is branding. Dentistry is not a 9-to-5 job, it's a profession. And your patients expect professionalism, which means you can expect to receive phone calls from your patients at any time. What your patients do not want to hear from you is, my office manager will call you tomorrow. You're just pushing off the patient's needs, and they don't appreciate that. The killer practice embraces professionalism. So how you react to that after-hours phone call is a determining factor between you and the dental practice down the street. It's a branding issue. Any dentist can push a patient off until the next morning. I mean, how difficult is that? You must do what no other dental practice can or is willing to do, and that means taking that after-hours call and taking care of the patient. And accessibility means you are able to continue the practice of dentistry outside the walls of your practice, whenever and wherever. And only the cloud can provide that ability and a satisfactory user experience at the same time. The second is Successability. And before you run to the dictionary and say, wait a minute, Successability is not in the dictionary, it's not. I kind of made it up. So I even Googled it, and there's no obscure dictionary out there with the word Successability.
Hey, it's your webcast. You can do what you want, buddy. And it has a nice ring to it, after all.
It does, because all of our 7 attributes end with ility, so we had to find something. In this context, Successability, how the cloud can help you build the killer practice, it fits perfectly. So let's talk about Successability. There was this gentleman, Dr. Frank Luntz, in 2009. He wrote a book titled What Americans Really Want, Really. Now, he wrote this book out of response to the presidential election in the United States at that time. And I don't want to go there, but Dr. Luntz presents 5 key lifestyles that we'll discuss in detail. Basically, when faced with a decision, the good doctor argues that you can weigh the choices on the decision by how well the expected results satisfy each of these 5 attributes. And they are less worry, less hassle, more choices, more time, more money. So if you have a decision to make and it satisfies all of these 5 attributes, that's the best decision to go with. So let's talk about less worry. To rid your life of worry is most likely impossible, but it is possible to take some continuous points of worry specific to your management software and get them out of your life. Remember what Forrest Gump said. He said, that's good, one less thing. So applicable to dental software, how? Well, if we don't have to worry about data backup, that's one less thing. If we don't have to worry about HIPAA compliance, that's one less thing. Ransomware, one less thing. Disaster recovery as it relates to keeping your PHI safe and accessible, that's one less thing. Less hassle. Now, the doctor makes a wonderful distinction between the two. A hassle is how long it takes your computer to fire up to a workable stage after you turn it on, he writes. But a worry is the death of your hard drive. So no worries is the difference between an inconvenience and a crisis. So how is this applicable to dental software? Well, no hassle, you never have to upgrade your software. And that's a huge hassle, and every doctor probably hates getting that new upgrade from their practice management software vendor. Like, here's the new upgrade, you need to go install it, and they know that that's going to be a hassle. They don't have to worry about running out of hard disk space. On the cloud, you don't worry about space. They don't have to worry about keeping that server maintained. That's a hassle. So the cloud takes away hassle. More time. Well, I'm sorry, more choices. Dr. Luntz explains that there is an important distinction between choice and the right to choose. For most Americans, denying the right to choose or seeming to limit choice is akin to denying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Conversely, selling the right to choose or seeming to expand choice is an embrace of the American ethos. All right, how does that applicable to dental software? Well, back to work style. The cloud provides you with the choice to work how, when, and where you want to work. And integrations, and specific to Curve Dental in this case, you're able to integrate a lot of different other third-party services into the software. Now let's jump to more time. You can't add hours to your day. The only way you can find more time for you, for your family, for your dreams, is to eliminate time spent doing other things. So how does that apply to dental software? You don't spend time installing upgrades. I think every doctor has that experience of taking that evening or even that weekend to go back into the practice, into the office, and install upgrades on every computer. The cloud lets you swap that time for something good. So instead of spending that evening or that weekend installing software, we're going to spend it with the family, or we're going to go do something that you enjoy. Don't spend time at the office finishing up notes. For doctors who are balancing motherhood or fatherhood with the practice, the sooner that mother can get home to the family and spend quality time with their children, the better. So as soon as the clock hits 5, that doctor can go home, spend time with the family, and then after the kids are down and asleep, they can go back and finish up their notes or whatever they need to do. So we're swapping time for good time. And more money. Cloud-based services are sold as a service. You're not purchasing a license to use the software. You're subscribing to a service, which costs less upfront. The traditional way to purchase software is you're going to write a check anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 up front, and then pay an additional $500 or more a month for everything else, such as support, upgrades, e-claims, and etc. So the cloud here leaves more dollars in your savings. There's not a huge capital expenditure in order to get into practice management software. So in summary, the very definition of success is achieving what you really want, and Dr. Lunt's 5 key attributes help you define your success. The closer you are to each attribute, the more successful you'll be. And again, Successability is what the cloud is all about. All right, the next one, number 3, affordability. Again, ends in ility, and we like that. If you go through and look at all the things that you're spending, all the services that you're spending to keep your software up to date and running, you could be spending as much as $1,400 per month on outdated technology. That's your licensing fees, your maintenance fees, data backup costs, IT services, electronic services, patient communication, online forms, practice and analytics, goes on and on. You could be spending as much as $1,400 on outdated technology. So how does
It's actually an interesting point that you're making, Andy. If people are like thinking, well, I've only paid, or I've already sunk my investment and it's free, actually the point you're making is it's not free. There are a number of other ongoing costs that you must incur when your system is not in the cloud that will basically go bye-bye if you get in the cloud, correct?
Yes, or if it doesn't go bye-bye, what you're doing is swapping, it's reducing and swapping those dollars for current technology rather than 1990s technology. I mean, if you're going to spend those dollars, spend them wisely.
Gotcha.
Every practice's needs are different. Some doctors can come back and say, well, I don't spend anything on data backup costs. Well, that concerns me. Maybe you should be. Or I don't spend anything on IT services. And that might be true because there are a number of doctors who really like to maintain that server. They like to do that, and they're quite capable of doing it. But there's a cost to their time, so you need to factor that in as well. So here's the key. Any dollar you spend now is spent on out-of-date technology. So the value you're getting for the price you're paying is definitely not balanced in this case. And here's a plug. I created this really nice worksheet. It looks kind of daunting, don't you think, Danny? There's a lot here, but it's titled "The Double Dog Dare to Compare How Much Are You Already Spending on Technology," and it's a worksheet to help you really figure out what am I spending on technology on a monthly basis, and it just walks you through each one. Cute little a short little dialogue of what the fee is, and then a suggestion of what you may be spending, and it gets down here on the far right in the lime colored, the total monthly cost. That's what you're spending for technology in practice. You can get
Actually,
this for
we'll make
free.
a note to be sure and send a reminder to everyone post webcasts how they can acquire this, which it looks like you just wanted to send you an email directly. Is that correct?
They're more than happy to send me an email and I'll send it to you. Not a problem.
Okay.
Andy.jensen@curvedental.com, and just put in the subject line "Double Dog Dare to Compare." I love that double dog dare. More technology for your dollar, where value and price are equally balanced. All right, business continuity. Man, we the states suffered some really bad natural disasters this last year. We had Harvey and what was the other one? Shoot, I had it right here written
Maria?
down. Yes, is that it? Yeah.
I know it was an Irma. I don't know how recent that
Irma.
was, but Maria, yeah.
Well, I think there was 3 then that rolled through and just really kicked our
so.
butts. If you're on the Gulf Coast, yeah, we had a couple doctors, one in Florida and one in Houston that suffered a bit, and I think I can talk about those.
Since you mentioned Climb for a Cause, Andy, this year for the first time we earmarked funds in addition to our regular commitments to oral health education and treatment. We got approval from the board to support disaster relief. In fact, I spent 4 days down in Houston helping to rebuild a couple of homes
good for
there.
you.
And, we had to do it. I felt guilty. It's like I'm in the Midwest and everywhere, everything was just seemed to be, falling apart. So I was just grateful. And as anyone will tell you who gets involved in such events, you always receive more than you give. So it was good for me.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that, talking to our customers that were in these areas, one thing that they did say, it will never happen to me. So don't be fooled by that "it'll never happen to me" justification for doing nothing. The killer practice does not get rolled over by these things that may or may not happen to you. But if they do, the killer practice doesn't worry about it. It's just a bump in the road rather than the end of the road. Here's 3 examples. We had a customer in the Midwest. Their practice burned to the ground. That video is on YouTube someplace. You actually see this building fully engulfed, burned to the ground. The only thing that he had to do, he was able to notify all patients of his circumstances. He had made arrangements with a colleague to be able to continue to practice out of his practice on the off hours, and he was able to continue to take care of his patients and maintain some productivity. Flood. We had a doctor in Houston. They evacuated and they went to San Antonio. And when they came back, everything, their practice was under 3 feet of water. And it was devastating for them. The doctor's husband is an IT professional. And as they walked into their practice and computers were underwater, there's wallboard that needs to be torn out, he turned to her and says, "At least we don't have to worry about our data, because it's not here. It's not here. It's on the cloud and it can be accessible from anywhere." We had a good doctor up in British Columbia, came, went to work as he does every morning, got to the office, was about to open up the office with his key and realized that the door had been forced open. Somebody had taken a crowbar and forced their way into the practice. In retrospect, he should have probably called the police first, but he obviously, instead he walked into the practice. It had been ransacked. All his computers had been stolen because it's a quick turnaround for dollars. That's not something you want to start your day with. But he called his wife. She brought a laptop from home to the practice, and they were ready to practice as soon as that first patient walked into the door while they were cleaning up glass and stuff. But they did not lose any production because their practice was on the cloud. So business continuity is a great place, is a great reason why you'd want to be on the cloud. And the killer practice, again, does not get rolled over by natural disaster or theft or ransomware. It's just a bump in the road, not the end of the road. And, if that's not good enough reason, our good friends at the HHS Office are happy to oblige with this. They said a covered entity must conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risks and vulnerabilities blah, 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 blah. What they're saying is every practice needs to have a business continuity plan or a business recovery plan. And the cloud is a great way to do that. Number 5 is scalability. The killer practice, by definition, is looking for growth. And if it fits them, either it means that you're expanding, you're growing your practice by the number of operatories or the number of doctors you have, or you're going, you know what, we're going to take our success and duplicate it in the next community. And so the cloud works really, really well here. Remember, there are 2 rules here that we want to remember. We need to keep the technology footprint small, and that's important. The cloud allows us to keep that small. Even if we expand to another location, we don't have to add communication infrastructure and anything else to communicate. The technology footprint remains very small. I had a doctor friend, orthodontist in downtown LA, very successful. He opened up a practice and was doing wonderful, decided to open up another practice that was only a mile away and was doing really well, opened another practice. And, you know, he came to me with the amount of money that I'm spending on communication utilities to keep these practices connected is ridiculous. I don't know if he was spending more on communication than he was on his saltwater fish tanks, but I'm sure it was pretty close, neck and neck. So here's some things that we need to remember about scalability. Number 1, keep the technology footprint small. The technology footprint is defined, well, we already defined it. It's the amount of technology required to keep your managed, it's the amount of technology required for you to manage your practice with technology. Client-server software has a larger footprint than the cloud because it requires a server and the IT services required to keep it maintained. What you want to work toward is a small technology footprint and utilize the least amount of technology and IT maintenance necessary to effectively manage the practice. The best argument for a small technology footprint is cost savings. The larger your footprint, the more you're going to spend. The smaller the footprint, the less you'll pay in hardware and IT services, as an example. And when you plan to duplicate yourself, the less you have to duplicate, the easier and more affordable it is to grow. So in short, the cloud really shines when you begin to add more than one location to your practice. You'll avoid huge investments in servers, IT services, licensing fees, communication services. You know, if you look at group practices, the larger group practices as an example, they flock to the cloud because of the savings. For them, there's huge savings opportunity there. And the killer practice will take advantage of that. Number 6 is sellability. If you go out and look and ask yourself who's buying practices, there are maybe 2 main groups that are buying practice: younger doctors and group practices. And in each case, the technology you have in your practice matters. Let's look at the younger doctors. If you're already on the cloud, that's an advantage over the other practices they're looking at, in that they don't have to convert from older technology to current technology. It's also a reflection on the staff. If you're using the cloud in your practice, your staff is viewed as being younger, hipper, they get it, instead of that's not how I do things, or the impression that the business team is entrenched with old, tired technology. That's something that a new doctor does not want to deal with.
Well, and I think that's a really important point to underscore, Andy, which is as more dentists are getting to that part in their practice life cycle where they're looking to package and prepare for a gradual or maybe a not so gradual exit strategy. You know, we often explain that your value, you're going to command a high value if you have in place a solid, reliable, dependable mechanism for generating new patient flow, for growing, in other words, for growing the practice. Mm-hmm. You're going to command a premium price if your team are trained and coached on how to convert calls to appointments. Mm-hmm. And you just go on down the line. And of course, having a cloud-based technology platform is something that most buyers, whether they're young buyers or corporate entities or really anybody that's looking to to succeed is gonna covet and look for. So I think that also, this involves, and I've already gotten a question about the ease of migration from current, client server technology to your
Oh yeah,
cloud-based platform.
great question.
Yeah, but these are things to think about. You may not be comfortable, but I guess put not so delicately, get over it if you want to command a premium price, and even and the way you command a premium price is by making your practice more efficient and successful now while you own it, which means it's going to be more fun and less stressful, whether you want to sell it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So that reflection on the team is very important. If those processes are progressive and the technology is progressive, that reflects on the whole team. It really does. I don't know how attractive it is for a younger doctor to walk in and go, "Oh my gosh, there's a monster server back here. What is that thing?" They're used to the internet and they really don't want to deal with that. On the group practice side, this is quite interesting. Progressive brand is an advantage. If you can already demonstrate to a group practice that your practice is progressive, that makes you much more attractive to them. And then again, there's that whole your choice in technology reflects upon all members of the team as being progressive, flexible, adaptable, because a group practice will do things their way. And every member of that team is going to adapt to some new process or some new technology. So that's a plus. So scalability, the killer practice adopts the cloud because it makes them more valuable. Number 7, I think this is our last one, is dependability. The number one rule of hardware is all hardware will fail. And I tried to make this text look like that somebody had chiseled the words "all hardware will fail" in granite, but it doesn't look like. I have to go back and try it again. But the first law of information technology is all hardware will fail. So the killer practice plans for that inevitability. According to a poll conducted by Statista, neat little website that I found, in the first year of life, a server's availability is 95%. Well, that's not bad. That 95% means that at any given time, there's a 95% chance that you'll be able to access your data. That's not bad. Curve Dental's availability as of today, I believe, is 99.9881%. So we're, 4.1% better than the first year of a server. As you go along, you can see that at 4 years, your server is now down to 89% availability. Whereas if you're on the cloud, you'd still be at 99.9881% or better. So all hardware will fail, and that means that the frequency of server failure begins in the first year. So that's something we need to remember, and it's something that the killer practice needs to plan for. So what do? How do we reach that 99.9881%? And it's done this way. We have multiple servers in multiple locations. So let's go back. What kind of location? We're in a data center, and specifically for Curve Dental, we use Amazon, which has a stellar record for dependability and security. So we have this data center, and in that data center, well, let's back up. That data center has perimeter physical security. Not anyone can just walk into a data center. If you're not allowed in, you're not going to get in. So you have that physical security. Then there's the digital security. Amazon is not buying their routers from Walmart. They're buying the best that money can buy in order to maintain digital security. And then inside, there's multiple servers. And they're mirroring each other. So if one server goes down, the other server just picks up because of the law that all hardware will fail. So we've designed our infrastructure around that inevitability, that when that server goes down, this server picks up. And to the end user, there's no noticeable difference. Now, if one location falls into the ocean, Again, it doesn't matter because there's another physical location that is mirroring everything that the first location was doing. So if a server fails, other servers are already online and immediately available. So that's how we get to that 99.9881%. And again, we go back to scalability. If a doctor was to try and do this on their own, they'd spend millions of dollars, and it just does not make economic sense. So here's the point of 99.9881%. Accessibility all the time versus decreasing accessibility means that you can depend on the cloud to deliver your PHI more than you can depend on a server. For a doctor with a server, you have to do these things. You should be replacing all of your computers every 3 to 5 years. That includes the server. You need to pay a professional to monitor the server. You need to pay a professional to maintain the server. You need to buy new servers every 5 to 10 years. You need to verify compliance with all 19 HIPAA security rules as they pertain to servers. And you need to pay and/or spend time for data backup. So if you have a server in your practice, those things are on your list of to-dos, your to-do list. On the other side, for a doctor on the cloud, you need to replace your computers every 3 to 5 years. That's all you need to do. You don't need to worry about a server. So the killer practice does not waste time and money on servers. They just don't do that. So let's review the 7 killer advantages. Accessibility, Successability, that's a great word. Affordability, business continuity, scalability, sellability, dependability. The path to the killer practice is made much, much easier when you leverage the cloud to help you get from a not so killer practice to the super killer practice. And how do you do that? Well, the cloud delivers these 7 key advantages over the practice that is chained to a server in the practice. Now, you can definitely send me an email saying I'd like to get your worksheet, and I'll be happy to send it to you. We do have an offer that's going on. It's, well, you know, this is only for those who are attending to this webcast, and that is that if you sign up within a certain amount of time, we'll give you 2 months of our service at no charge. Just call us and we'll take care of you, or send me a note and I'll take care of you. Now, 2018 is the year of the cloud. And why do I say that? Well, more doctors are going to move their practices to the cloud in 2018 than in any previous year. The profession, in my opinion, the profession has clung on to 1990s technology for far too long. It's 2018, for crying out loud. And you have to ask yourself, why is there a server in your practice? Everything you do in your life is on the cloud, but for some reason you walk through that threshold into your practice, suddenly nothing's on the cloud. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. Again, if you have any questions, I guess, Danny, there's some questions.
There are indeed, and thanks a lot, Andy. That was succinct, actually shorter than usual, but that's a good thing because we do have a high number of questions, and no one's ever berated me for getting off the call a little bit earlier. That's always kind of nice. And I appreciate the offer too. I mean, you said we really hadn't had a chance to talk about just how long it was going to be available. I guess you're just reserving the right to pull it, but I appreciate you for very much for agreeing to do that, because that was a last minute request that I made. So, Andy, I put him on the spot, right?
Well, you know the lawyers, they said I have to have that limited time offer in there. So, look, if we have podcast members come back to us a year from now, I think we'd be happy to oblige.
Okay, well, good. I'm sure they appreciate that. All right, so let's just dive in. At some of these questions, you know, we often get questions early in the webcast, and then you may or may not answer them. But most of these, I think, are, you know, like, for instance, the first question I've got is, what if the internet goes down? Well, actually, you hadn't really addressed that. So what if the internet goes down? We're all dead, right?
Yeah.
We all should just go to bed, curl up, and
yes. Man, darn it! What are we gonna do? You know, it's funny. It's now, make no mistake. It's a very good question, because obviously you're tied to the internet. You know, what happens if electricity goes down? We're done too.
To come back. Yeah, we are.
We're done.
We are very dependent. Which is, you know, I'm reading a book now called At War, which is all about the fourth domain after air, land, sea, and space, and that's cyberspace.
Cyberspace.
And if you think about how dependent we are, and if you're some malevolent country or individual or hacker that has maybe a political agenda, but more if you're like rather than having to stage a bomber assault, you just knock out the electric grid. In the Midwest several weeks ago, for several days, a couple days, several times, it was double-digit sub-zero temperatures. And I was thinking, if somebody knocked out the electric grid, it wouldn't be an inconvenience. You'd have tens or hundreds of thousands of people dead. So it is not to bring us down, but we are dependent on utilities, and being a survivalist doesn't make you a crackpot. It maybe makes the rest of us rethink whether we're truly prepared.
Mm-hmm. Now,
but anyway, what if the internet goes down, Andy?
Well, so
I digressed.
The analogy with electricity is many doctors have a generator that they can pull out, and a little Honda generator, and allows them to keep practicing and keep providing the patients with the care they need. On the internet side, to use an example, we had a customer in Florida when Irma came through, left them without any internet access, and they just pulled out a hotspot connected to their cell phone carrier, and they were able to continue to work that way. Now, that type of speed hindered their ability to take some images here and there. That certainly slowed things down there, but they're quite capable of seeing who's coming in and providing the care those patients needed, and keep those records. So what some of our practices have done is they have a router that if the internet goes down, it automatically switches to a cell phone carrier and continues to provide them with some access to the internet. The interesting thing here, go ahead.
Just the point is that if the internet quote goes down, it's going to be typically a pretty localized phenomenon. I don't know that it's ever happened yet that the entire web has crashed, where nobody had access. That would be.
That'd be something else.
Right, but when it comes back up, the data are intact.
Well, the data was never at risk, ever.
Right.
The
just the connection, the access to it may have been temporarily.
Yes. The
lost.
Interesting thing to remember are two things. Number one, that question, what do I do when the internet goes down, is a question we always hear from doctors, but we never hear it from our customers. And the reason is that the number of times that the internet actually goes down is relatively small. It doesn't happen that often. I can't even think of a time when we've lost internet in my house. I can't think of a time that's happened. Number two is that when the internet does go down, and it's going to happen, is trucks are rolling to take care of that. Contrast that with what happens when your server crashes. Well, you got to call your IT guy, and is he going to drop everything he has to run out to start up your server? Probably not. I don't know if he's going to do that. So trucks roll when the internet goes down. Good question, though.
Okay, well, here comes some more. How does, where is that? Well, I'll ask one that I've already copied. Is it not the case that one can access one's software without being in the cloud by, for example, using Go to My PC? I know the answer to that is yes. So I guess the real question is how does true cloud computing compare with that?
The difference is, again, there's no third-party software required in order to access that software. So if you're using a client-server system in your practice, you can use these systems that will allow you to access, it's third-party software to access your data, but the user experience is not that great. It's a little clunky. And again, you just had to increase your technology footprint in order to make that happen. So with the cloud, there is no other third-party software that we need to add, purchase, or whatever, or maintain. It's accessibility is a natural benefit.
Okay. Uh, Next question, what kind of internet speed is required?
It's really, the rule is the faster the better. Um, I don't think I have to remind a lot of doctors that, you know, my 17-year-old daughter always reminds me almost every day that the internet at our home is too slow. For whatever reason, for me, it's just fine. I'm able to watch what I want to watch and access what I want. I don't know what she's doing that she always says, it's too slow, it's too slow. But as a good father, I also have to announce that I am upgrading my internet access to my home. I'm getting fiber. I guess so I don't have to listen to that anymore. But whatever.
Well, yeah, you might get, one of these days they'll probably have that'll be a cause of action against parents for neglect that they don't maintain a sufficient
It could
internet
be.
speed.
It could be. Although I just have to say, happy daughter, happy life, or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, right. After wife, for sure. How does Curve compare with other cloud-based dental software?
Look, I there are some good systems out there. I don't want to disparage anybody because there's some really neat things going on. I've looked at our competitors and, oh, that's pretty cool. That's something we should do. Or, oh, that's neat too. There have been some flashes in the pan. Look, this business, this dental software business is not a business for the light-hearted, for the light of faint. Or how does that word go?
Faint of heart.
Faint of heart, thank you. It requires a lot of time and a lot of money even before you start to offer your service. What you see on the screen is the easy part. Having something show up on the screen, that's the easy part. The hard part is having an infrastructure that allows your customers to be able to access their PHI at 99.889% of the time. That's the hard part, and that's where the money goes. We've been doing this for 12 years. 12 years of cloud-only development. And we have hit a number of bumps in the road along the way. And with every bump, we have learned what we need to do to our infrastructure to make sure that that never happens again. And like all technology, computer technology, things happen that you can't anticipate. But when it does happen, we learn from it. We modify our infrastructure so that if that particular thing happens again, it won't create a disruption for our customers. So in the end, I think the most important thing to look at is that experience. You want to go with a company that has the best dependability, that can say, look, we don't have 10 customers on our service. Curve Dental has 14 million patient records on our infrastructure, and we've learned how to make sure, how we can keep that available to our customers at any given time, whenever they need it and wherever they need it. That's the most important thing. I also think that one thing that differentiates us from our competitors, perhaps, is our customer service. We answer that phone, on average, we're answering that phone in less than 40 seconds, and we're getting you off the phone and back to your practice in less than 8 minutes. And that's phenomenal numbers. And we publish those numbers on our website. And we publish our dependability, our status on our website too. And I don't know of any of our competitors that do that. So until someone wants to publish their numbers, I have to say that according to the data I have, and to the best of my knowledge, we have the best dependability and the best customer service out there.
Well, that shows a lot of confidence and transparency. And going along with the theme of not wanting to disparage your competition, here's another question. Does Curve provide a more sophisticated charting and management software than Dentrix or EagleSoft or others?
Oh, my goodness.
I just read them. I don't write them.
Yeah, can I just reminisce for a second?
You may.
Thank you. Let me tell you. Back in 1992, I went to the Chicago Midwinter meeting. I was new to dentistry, and on the plane ride over, my boss is got a piece of paper in front of me and teaching me how to demo Dentrix. And because there were no laptops, it was all paper. And so I'm learning on the airplane ride over how to demo Dentrix. And we set up the booth. Back then it was a 4-day show, and the first day opened, and I'm scared. I'm scared to death. And I turn around, and there's a doctor who's looking at this old big CRT, monitor thing on the desk, and he goes, "What is that? I've got to see that." And so I went through my spiel the best I could, and I got to tell you, Danny, I mangled it. My first one, I mangled it. I don't think the doctor understood a word I said, but in the end, I said, "So, doctor, what do you think?" And he goes, "I'll never forget this." He said, "That is the coolest thing I've ever seen." And why did he say that? Because it was the first graphical odontogram that anyone had ever put out there. It was Windows based, it was graphical, and it was fabulous. And I knew that I was onto something. So the reason I bring that up is,
and that was 25 years ago.
yes,
so you were
that
just
was in
getting started.
1992. It was 1992, and so Dentrix has had how many years to add all these features to its software? The one thing, it's a great application. It's client server based, and for that it's still old, but it works. And the one thing I have to say about it is there's nothing that Dentrix can't do. It can probably butter your toast if you could only find how to do that. So I guess what I'm trying to say
that's for
is,
sure. I got to guess that the typical dentist is utilizing 10 to 20% of most software's capabilities, and that's not because they're dumb. It's got to be another reason, and it's
right.
It's intimidating and not intuitive.
One of our customers said that he had dialed into Dentrix customer service, was waiting for someone to answer the phone, and while he was waiting, he's looking at the Dentrix chart, and he suddenly realized that he didn't know what any of these icons did. He had no clue what they did. So I guess my point is this: if you do a side-by-side comparison of our charting software and their charting software, and you go down by, we're not going to win that battle, because we have 12 years of adding features to our software, and Dentrix has 20 some odd years of doing that. So we're not going to win that battle on the feature side. But when it comes to all the things that we talked about today, accessibility, reducing hassles, we're going to win that battle hands down.
Terrific. And I want to share with you that one of our loyal Practice Perfection attendees, Dr. Dan, just sent me a link to a definition of successability, which I am sharing with you right now, Andy.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dan. I appreciate that.
Right. Success plus possibility equals successability thinking. Be careful. Your mind will attract what you think about the most.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Dan.
Thank you, Dr. Dan.
I think you have the question here too, but I'm not sure which of these this is. But the next question is there an online demo to see Curve in action?
There are plenty of YouTube videos out there that show the software in action. So there are a lot.
What would they search? Would just Curve Dental demo in YouTube?
Yeah, we actually have a channel. It's a YouTube channel, and there are multiple videos there that focus on one thing. There's of course there's a video that covers everything. Then there are smaller videos that cover different aspects like billing, scheduling, charting, those types of things, and you can see it in action.
Okay. I think, oh yeah, we got some more questions here. Let's just keep rolling. Okay, next, does this mean that all the machines in the office, I think this is Dr. Dan, does this mean that all the machines in the office are dumb so that they can be stolen and be useless and therefore more secure? Good question.
Yes.
Too. Is data downloaded or is it just cut off?
No.
You know, if someone rips it out of the wall, there's no data on there. Is that correct?
Correct. There's no data on that machine. No data on the machine. So if it's stolen, if it's stolen, there's no HIPAA violation unless you're storing something else on that machine. But in terms in the Curve Dental world, there's no PHI on that machine.
Yeah, and I shouldn't say they're dumb terminals. From the perspective of the practice management software, they're dumb.
Yes,
but there may be other data on there that you may want to protect.
The computing
How,
power is done on the cloud.
How simple or difficult is it to migrate to the Curve platform? That's a big one that my clients have asked, prior to this webcast.
It's no different than migrating from one system to another. It really doesn't change anything. I think we have converted data from more than 100 different titles to Curve Dental. If you're using Dentrix, yeah, we've done that a lot. Eaglesoft, the more popular ones. Yes, we've taken practices from those systems to the cloud, and we do it almost every day. The neat thing that we have done, to give you a little bit of background, because the Curve Dental office is just 2 freeway exits south of the exit to Dentrix, there are a number of people here who used to work at Dentrix. So we have that experience of knowing what worked well at Dentrix, and then coming to Curve and building on that experience and offering something that is pretty unique. So when a practice makes the decision they want to move to the cloud with Curve, we have a complete implementation map it's a map that we actually email to the customer and say, here's your map, and here's what we're going to do here, and this is what we need you to do, and here's what's going to happen at this time, and here's what's going to happen at this time, and here's when your training is scheduled, and here's when we're going to convert all your data over. And there's a plan, and we stick to the plan. And that really helps us. The last thing that we want during an implementation is a surprise. Surprises are not good. We want there to be expectations and a plan and calendar events, and that's what we do.
Next question. This is actually a comment. I am a cloud accountant.
Cool.
Wow. With a minor in meteorology? I don't know, but
really?
She's like, no, not really. I'm just
okay.
living here. A cloud accountant, and one of my dental practice clients lost his computer data to ransomware, except for his financial system, which I had recently converted to the cloud.
Good for you.
That's a cautionary tale. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good. And I guess this is a follow-up. I don't know if it was the same question, but this question or comment is looking for a demo where one can, quote, play for comparison. So as opposed to just watching a video, I guess maybe they're asking about a trial. Well, you offer 2 months free, I think, right?
Yeah, but that's what they're asking for is a try before you buy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the trial would be that would be 2 months once you buy. So yeah, they're asking for a trial.
Mm-hmm. And we will do that. We can do that, but we don't like to do it. And here's what we found out. Here's why. It's not because we're scared of anything, but look.
No, it's time.
When a doctor is looking for software, that is a big job. It's a big task, and we want to make it as easier. We want to make it easy for them to make the right decision. If I provide a doctor with access to our software willy-nilly and say, yeah, here you go. Here's the URL. Here's your username. Here's a password. That is only going to cause much frustration on the part of the doctor. Why? Because there's no training. And so they get in there and they don't know what they're doing. Right.
And they say this doesn't work. It's because
exactly. I hear that all the time.
You're sort of setting everybody up for a negative experience.
That's right. So rather than do that,
I gotcha.
And to help that doctor make the right decision, I would rather say, you come to us with a list of the things that are most important to you. And then let's sit down and let us show you how Curve Dental can handle every one of those things on your list. And then we can answer all those questions. We can put them in touch with doctors who are using Curve each and every day. We can answer every question and show them how it's done in real time and help them that way. And that is going to help them make sure they're getting the right software for their practice, and it's not going to be this frustrating task. Look, easy to use software. Our software, if you go and do a Google search and you type in Curve Dental software reviews, you will see that the the thing that doctors most often say about Curve is it's easy to use. It's easy to use. That does not mean that it doesn't require training. It still requires training, and you just can't get around that. It requires training.
I absolutely understand that. Here's a question you may have pretty much. And what about ransomware and data security? I think you pretty much addressed that. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Ransomware doesn't look. If you're a Curve Dental doctor, you can still get ransomware. You or your team member could download something or respond to some email, and your computer could be locked up. But it doesn't matter, because your data is not on the computer, so they can hold your computer ransom, but they can't hold your data ransom. So
and any data that's on there, but it just won't happen to be patient data, which is
correct.
Probably the most precious and
right.
potentially the most headache-ridden.
You just have to wipe the hard drive clean and reformat the disk, and you're ready to go. It's a pain in the butt, obviously. It's a pain, but you're not going to have to go and pay someone $5,000 in Bitcoin or however much they're charging these days.
Yep, but that alone is a really good reason to consider a cloud-based solution, because you can't eliminate crime, you can only redirect it. And as the larger hospitals and healthcare centers that are better healed, they can afford tighter, more robust security measures. The villains are just looking to less secure locks to pick. And if you consider the average dental practice, well, whatever that means, 1,500 patient records, and my good friend Larry Emmett presented, this was a couple of years ago, I think the average patient record goes in the dark web for something like $250 for a patient record, probably more now. It's $500,000, $250,000. That ain't chump change. And if it's easy to access, you better believe that you're getting on these cyber criminals' radar. So it's really something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can you also suggest hardware for purchase? Why not?
Well, yes, because in this instance, excuse me, you don't need to, it's not necessary to buy your hardware from an IT professional, although there's nothing wrong with that, because the hardware requirements are not that stringent. For the software, speaking, you just need to be able to access the internet and support a browser. A good amount of RAM. Don't cheat on RAM. You want some good RAM on there. And processing speed isn't that important. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a tower for your operatory, as an example. The new Windows 10 tablets. Oh, Samsung makes a beautiful Windows 10 tablet. It seems to be running Curve just wonderfully, and that's something you can buy for less than $1,000, I believe. Some of our customers are using Chromebooks, and Chromebooks are pretty cheap. And we have some customers that are using the Windows Surface tablet with good success. Obviously, you can't capture images with any of those tablets, but if you're an office manager, it does allow you to stand up and walk around the practice and still have your schedule in front of you, which might be convenient.
All right. If my data is on the cloud, how do I maintain a backup of my data? I guess the point here is you don't, right? Because you're doing the mirroring and the backups for them, correct?
That's correct. Now, there is, let's all admit it, there's some psychology involved in wanting that I gotta have that PHI with me because I just gotta. And so we acknowledge that. We have a little feature in Curve, and it's called Get My Data. You click on that button, and you then identify where you want that data to be downloaded to, and it will download all of your patient data to wherever you want it to go. And then you can put that underneath your mattress at night, or take it to your lawyer, or put it in your bank account. I don't know what you want to do with it, but you can do it. And you can do that as often as you like.
Your security blanket, your
security blanket.
Data security blanket. Okay.
It's a data security blanket, but at the same time, it also represents a security risk, because that data has been sitting someplace that now you are responsible for. From a HIPAA standpoint, you're responsible for that.
You know, I would almost say that if you're going to lose, if you lose the data, there's probably a lot more important things worth worrying about at that point.
Yes.
Because I imagine your mirroring is also geographically dispersed. You know, like, so if you're in an area that gets hit by an earthquake or a fire or some other natural disaster, a flood, it's not going to be all taken out. So
multiple servers.
Where are your
and
backups? Do you know? Yeah. Okay.
I know, because Amazon is not does not freely provide that information. They provide regions. They'll tell you what region, but they won't tell you, oh, your data is at 123 Apple Street in Virginia. They won't tell you that.
No. If I'm looking at different cloud-based dental management systems, what are the key questions I should ask to see which is the best fit for my practice?
Like I said before, create a list of things that are most important to you and your practice, and then go get, then have a sales representative or whomever go through that list and show you how the practice can provide you, how the software can satisfy your needs. But in the end, I think it still comes down to experience and dependability. You can't, there's no substitute for experience. There really isn't. The only way that infrastructure can become more robust and more dependable is through trial and error.
Agreed. Where do you see cloud-based dental software going over the next 5 years, Mr. Crystal Ball Prognosticator?
Let me tell you something. When I joined Curve Dental in 2009, I was a little bit naive with the cloud. I thought that, from my perspective, it was like the cloud only look. I think I can say this. I was in meetings at Dentrix where the executive management team got around the big boardroom, and these are brilliant people. I enjoyed my time with Henry Schein. These are good people. We sat around that board table, and the guy in charge of development said, "Hey, we just found an error, and we need to decide as a management team whether or not we're going to burn new discs and ship them to all of our customers." And when you talk about that, you're talking about a $250,000 investment of burning new discs and shipping them out and all that type of stuff. So it was, do we fix the software and get that out to our customers now, or do we wait until the next upgrade, which is 6, 7, 8 months down the road, and then provide that fix? And that is a tough decision to make, very tough. And I remember someone, and it may have been me, but I remember sitting around that, and somebody said, if we were on the cloud, this wouldn't be a problem. And so when I went to Curve Dental, I kind of had this expectation that every doctor out there would go, this only makes sense. I should be on the cloud. This is ridiculous. Having a server in my practice, this is ridiculous. But that didn't happen. It's taken a lot of time for us to gain momentum and become one of the leaders that we are now. That took a lot of time. I'm sad to say that based on the experience of where we've been and how long it took us to get to where we are now, that 5 years from now, we're still going to be we may be at the late majority of doctors who are going, oh yeah, I got to do this cloud thing. And right now we're just entering the early majority. So so from adoption, I guess that's what I see in the next 5 years is finally we're going to get a majority of the profession on the cloud, which is much slower than what our physicians are doing in their adoption rate. From a feature standpoint, yes, 5 more years of development is going to allow us to do some really fun things on the cloud. You know, if you blue sky about some of the things out there, you've got your Google. Oh, help me, Dan. You got the Google. Is it Google Home?
Drive.
No, you got
mean?
these at your home. You've got these little things that say, "Okay, Google, tell me
Oh,
what time the
Alexa?
movie starts." That's on the Amazon side, right?
That's Amazon. I don't know what Google's called.
So
Well,
imagine,
it's Siri, and there's Hey Google, I suppose. I
yeah.
don't know.
So imagine if you're in your practice and you know, "Hey Google, when is my next appointment?" And it says your next appointment is, you know, whenever. Or, "Hey Google, send a text message, send an email to Mr. Brown telling him that I have his crown here and he needs to give me a call." Something like
It's
that.
pretty exciting times. I mean, technology is definitely moving along exponentially as it was predicted. I just read, I think Howard Ferrand posted that in China, a robot placed a dental implant, first one ever.
Wow,
You know?
that's
and
pretty cool.
it's, you know, at least it succeeded. It's been 2 months and going, but you know, it passed muster. And here's a question from the aforementioned doc, whom I shall now refer to as Dr. Weisenheimer. Can you share your cloud security secrets with the IRS and NSA? But actually, Dr. Dan, that's not so funny. If you read they're not so far from the truth. This book I mentioned earlier, At War, talks about how the NSA is collaborating with companies that they consider critical infrastructure. They invite them in, they give them security clearance, and basically, and I quote, say, "If you tell anybody what we're sharing with you, we will throw you in jail for the rest of your life."
So I can't
But
tell you that.
the reason they do it though is they're learning as much from the corporate world as the corporate world is learning from them quite frequently, because they got people that have their own. You know, Google got hacked 6 years ago by China, and they wanted to go public, and under the Obama administration, they didn't want to because it was going to cause too much of a political incident, or, you know, brouhaha. And Google said, well, we don't care. We're going to go public anyway. So then the administration had to kind of jump ahead, and it actually turned out well because they could blame Google for blowing the whistle. But there's a lot of such collaboration that's taking place. Kind of a whole brave new world. So that's the answer to that. We got time for a couple more questions here. Who owns the information, and how difficult is it to migrate out if I want to close the practice or sell it?
The doctor owns that. That is not our information. That is not our data. Yeah. We are stewards of the data. And it is, again, like I said, it's accessible at any time. Get my data, boom, it downloads as a CSV file, which you can take to any other software vendor and say, here's my data, and they can then import that data into, they can convert that data to whatever file format they're using. It is not our data. It is the doctor's data, and we're stewards of the data.
Well, thank you for confirming that. All right, we got a couple more here. Does Curve tie into third parties, like those that do recall and surveys? And I would also add to that review generators. Or does Curve have this integrated already?
We went both routes because there are some great systems out there. In no particular order, Solution Reach, Demand Force, Lighthouse 360. We're working with 2 other systems right now. They'll be coming online later. I mean, those Solution Reach, Demand Force, Lighthouse, they're thinking about patient communication day and night. That's all they do, and they got some awesome features. So we integrate with all 3 of those quite nicely. But if you find that Solution Reach et al. Provides much more than you really need, we also have built-in email and text appointment reminders built into our software at a much reduced price than what you'll pay over there. But you know, we don't have the luxury of thinking just of patient communication features. We also have to think about counting and scheduling and clinical. So we'll leave that up to the experts. We'll provide basic functionality for our customers, but if they want that serious stuff, then yeah, there's some great solutions out there.
And finally, do you have a cell phone app for patients or doctors? If not, are there any plans to roll one out?
Cell phone app. Right now, you can access on your cell phone. You can access your schedule, and basic patient information will show up on your phone. And in the future, yeah. Yes, I mean, here's the deal. That whole mobility thing is very sexy because, yeah, I can get that data on my phone. I can get that data on a tablet. That's sexy and that's cool. And what the trouble we're having is trying to balance that with practicality. You know, so you're going to chart with an iPad, and it gets cumbersome because unfortunately you can't show the whole odontogram at one time on that iPad. So you're having to scroll from one quadrant to another in order to chart, and it becomes a little bit, the user experience is a little bit cumbersome. So that practicality versus that sexiness there's a balance there.
Yeah, practicality versus just sort of bling or flash in the pan technology is not something that sounds like Curve is really interested in getting involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good thing. Well, hey, Andy, that was fun, and I want to thank you for the time and also for agreeing to make the offer of the 2 free months and getting people that worksheet. And I also want to acknowledge you attendees for a lot of really good questions. That's always fun, makes my job a little easier. So now I just want to remind you that in a few days you'll receive an email with instructions on how to receive your 1.5 hours of PACE approved CE credit. And also ask you that you now please mark your calendars for Tuesday, February 20th, when our very special guest presenter on that date and time will be Monroe McKay, Senior Business Development Manager, who will lead a discussion entitled Dental Patients Are Just Like Us. Learn how successful businesses attract, retain, and maximize relationships with their clients. In the meantime, I want to again sincerely thank you, Andy, for a terrific presentation. And of course, thank all of you for your continued commitment to practice perfection. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Danny. It was a lot of fun.